Hello Oscar, Grandpa here. I hope you're well and having a fun time with Mummy and Daddy and with your little sister Annabelle. And I hope you're excited too about going back to school this week coming. So love to hear all about it when we next speak to you. It would be wonderful to know how you're getting on, and I really hope you meet lots of friends and boys and girls and have a fun time. And as I say, we look forward to hearing all about it. So it's love from me and from your friend Nosey here. Hello, Nosey. Yep, you going to say hello? Yep. And from Granny too, and Auntie Andrew, of course. So we're going to finish off a little bit of the remaining bit of the Playful Panda today, and then we're going to move on. And I'm just starting to read Mr. Men books, but I'm not choosing them in any particular order, so I just take them as they are in the pile. Okay, so May, you'll remember, was lost, and the reporters there, all the crowd were waiting to see the two pandas, and one of the reporters was sighing because he hadn't met them yet. He said, "We haven't even caught a glimpse of them. I'm going home if they don't show up soon." "Oh, what a pity," Great Uncle Horace said with concern. "You really must wait and see them. Pandas are so rare, especially twins." He smiled brightly at the man. "Did you know that in China they're called giant bear cats?" Fancy that, Oscar, giant bear cats. Some people also call them bamboo bears. Fascinating. The crowd gathered around Great Uncle Horace as he began telling them all about pandas. You listening, Moosey? Yep. Stop wandering off. Oh, there you are. Oh, that's better. Even the grumpy reporter looked interested. Zoe knew he'd only be distracted for a few minutes, though. She had to find May and get both cubs back into their home fast. Quietly, she tiptoed round the outside of the enclosure until she found where the hole in the fence was hidden. Chi-Chi started wriggling so much in the backpack that Zoe let her out. Together, Zoe, Meep and Chi-Chi all began looking around for any sign of May. Then Chi-Chi squealed eagerly. "What have you found, Chi-Chi?" chirped Meep, hopping up and down. Chi-Chi lifted her paw and pointed. A wisp of white fluff was caught on the branch of a tall oak tree just outside the enclosure. With an excited squeak, Chi-Chi scampered up the tree. "Chi-Chi," Zoe called out in a loud whisper. It was just like naughty Chi-Chi to run off when they needed her. Naughty Chi-Chi. The little panda disappeared up the tree trunk and was soon invisible among the branches. Zoe sighed, and instead of finding one panda, now she'd lost two. "Chi-Chi," she whispered again. Suddenly there was a suspicious voice behind her. "Just what do you think you are doing, Miss Parker?" "No." "Look, there's Mr. Pinch." And he looks very cross with his arms folded, and Zoe's looking up the tree. Chapter 10. It's the final chapter. Wow, that'll be exciting, won't it, Oscar? Friends Forever is the chapter name. Look, there's Chi-Chi and May. They're obviously friends there. "Mr. Pinch," Zoe stammered, feeling her cheeks flush pink. Carefully she stepped to one side so that the zoo manager couldn't see the hole in the fence. "I was just looking for the pandas." She peered into the enclosure. "I thought I might be able to see them from this side of the enclosure, but I can't." The grumpy zoo manager glared at her. "Well, I'm looking for them myself," he told her bossily. "The crowd is fed up of waiting, and I won't let those two little pets spoil the special event. They have to be around here somewhere." He peered into the enclosure and added crossly, "There are just so many of these big clumps of bamboo that they could have hidden behind." Zoe glanced up at the tree. Chi-Chi's black and white face peered out from the branches. Then next to her there was another flash of black and white, and another face appeared. There wasn't just one baby panda in the tree, but two. Chi-Chi had found May. Oh, fantastic. Zoe had to hide her grin as Mr. Pinch looked at her curiously. There was another rustling sound from inside the tree, and a high, happy squeaking sound. Mr. Pinch looked around, puzzled. "Can you hear that? There's definitely a panda close by," he muttered. Zoe looked at Meep desperately. "We can't let Mr. Pinch see that the cubs are out of their enclosure," she whispered. "Can you distract him?" Meep's little face lit up. "I can be just as cheeky as Chi-Chi," he told her proudly. With a nimble leap he sprang over to the zoo manager. It had rained that morning, and there was a muddy puddle next to him. With a gleeful chirp, Meep leapt into the puddle, splashing mud on the zoo manager's shiny shoes. Mr. Pinch stared down at the mess in disbelief. "I polished my shoes this morning," he spluttered. "You little nuisance. I'll have to clean these before the reporters see." He shook his head crossly and pointed a finger at Zoe. "If those pesky pandas haven't appeared by the time I'm back, I'm going into the enclosure, and I'll search every inch until I find them." Look, there's Mr. Pinch, and there's Meep having splash water all over his shiny shoes. As Mr. Pinch stomped off along the path, Zoe turned to the tree. "Chi-Chi," she called softly. "You can come down now. He's gone." There was a cheeky giggle, and Chi-Chi slid down the tree trunks, her dark eyes bright. Then the branches shook gently again, and another face popped out of the leaves, squeaking happily. "May," gasped Zoe, relief and happiness sweeping through her. "You were in the tree all along." "Hooray!" cried Meek, bouncing up and down. Both pandas scrambled down from the tree. Zoe laughed as they leapt into her arms, and they all shared a fluffy cuddle. "I'm so glad you're all right, May," she told the little panda. "We were all so worried about you." And look, there's Zoe with both fluffy pandas. Can you imagine giving those May and Chi-Chi a cuddle, Oscar? That would be lovely and fluffy. Chi-Chi muzzled May with her black nose, squealing eagerly. May was very brave to go exploring all by herself, Chi-Chi, Zoe agreed, smiling. "And she did find the best hiding place yet from Mr. Pinch. But I think you'd both better stay inside your home from now on, don't you?" May nodded, and Zoe grinned as the cubs squeaked and chattered in delight about their adventure. While they were apart, they'd realised how much they missed one another, and now they were so happy to be back together, safe and sound. Suddenly Meek tugged on Zoe's sleeve with his tiny fingers. "Quick, Zoe," he chirped. "Mr. Pinch is back." Zoe placed the cubs carefully on the ground, and they squeezed back through the hole in the fence and peeped out from behind the bamboo. The zoo manager was inside the enclosure, looking out at the grumbling cloud. "They must be in here somewhere," he announced, trying to sound cheerful. "I've had enough of this," snapped one of the reporters. "I don't believe there are really any pandas at all. I think you've been making it all up." As Mr. Pinch spluttered, Meep turned to Zoe. "If all those people leave without seeing the pandas, they'll be very cross," the little lemur chatted nervously. "They might even tell people not to come to the rescue zoo anymore." "There's something even more important to think about, Meep," Zoe replied. "If Mr. Pinch doesn't see that the pandas are getting along now, he might still decide to send one of them away. Remember," he said, "they had to be friends by today." She looked through the wire enclosure and laughed. "But I don't think we need to worry about that anymore, Meep." She giggled happily. Side by side, Chi-Chi and May scampered out from behind the bamboo and padded towards the crowd. As they got closer, May leapt playfully onto her sister, and they rolled around in a pile of leaves, giggling and squealing. Chi-Chi was proud of her brave sister. Even better, May was no longer too timid and frightened to try new things. In fact, May seemed just as bold and brave as Chi-Chi, rolling, scampering and having fun in her home more than ever before. Isn't that nice, Oscar? After their big adventure, the cubs realised how much they love each other. Zoe grinned as she listened to their excited squeals. They've made friends for good this time. And there they are, look. May and Chi-Chi. Oh, that's just so nice, isn't it? It's like you and Annabelle, Oscar, because, you know, you're going to spend all your lives loving one another and knowing one another, and that's absolutely wonderful. Suddenly the reporters spotted them, and there were gasps and laughs from the crowd. "Look, there they are," one cried. "I don't believe it. They're even cuter than I imagined." "And look at them playing together. They're gorgeous," added another, taking a picture. And there's the crowd, and May and Chi-Chi. Aren't they lovely? Mr. Pinch stared at the pandas, completely baffled. "Where on earth were the little fluffballs hiding?" he muttered. "I looked everywhere." While the crowd were busy watching the pandas, Zoe covered up the hole in the fence with an armful of dry sticks and twigs. "We'll make sure Stephanie fixes it properly later," she whispered to me. "But something tells me the cubs won't be trying to escape again any time soon." Quietly they slipped back to the gate and out onto the path. Zoe ran up behind Stephanie and Great Uncle Horace and tapped them both on the shoulder. "There you are, sweetheart," Stephanie cried, throwing her arms around Zoe. "I was wondering where you were. Quick, take a look at Chi-Chi and May. I don't know what's happened, but suddenly they're getting along so well." "It's extraordinary," added Great Uncle Horace, his brown eyes twinkling at Zoe, and just in time. The gate opened again, and out came Mr. Pinch. Zoe waited for him to storm and shout about the naughty cuds, but the zoo manager was delighted. The reporters say they'll tell all their friends to come to the zoo to see the pandas, Mr. Pinch announced smugly. One of them even promised to write a special story about how rare they are. You don't see twin pandas every day, after all. That means extra visitors for the rescue zoo and extra money. It was a brilliant idea of mine, making sure we kept them both. He strolled off down the path, whistling a happy tune. Will the sisters always be together, Mr. Higgins, called a reporter, holding a microphone out to great Uncle Horace. Always, he replied, beaming at Zoe. The cubs are not just sisters, they are also the very best of friends. We would never dream of separating them. And there's great Uncle Horace with Lucy and Zoe and me. Zoe beamed back at great Uncle Horace and turned to watch the baby pandas rolling around together. She was so relieved and so happy. The twins were both going to stay at the rescue zoo and enjoy being together. Just then May leapt up into the waterfall, splashing Chi-Chi. The crowd chuckled and Meep giggled so hard he fell over. Zoe grinned and scooped her little friend into her arms for a hug. It looks like the rescue zoo doesn't have one playful panda anymore, Meep, she whispered happily. Now we have two. And there they are. Look, there's Zoe and Meep watching the two pandas, May and Chi-Chi. And that's the end of that book, Oscar, Playful Panda. And it was a really great book, wasn't it? Okay, well, we've just got a quick time, just a minute, to start Mr. Nosey. So, Mr. Nosey liked to know about everything that was going on. He was always poking his nose into other people's business. Mr. Nosey was the sort of person who, if they came upon a locked door, couldn't resist looking through the keyhole to see why the door had been locked. And there's Mr. Nosey looking through the keyhole. Mr. Nosey was the sort of a person who, if he found an unopened letter addressed to somebody else, would simply have to open it to find out what was inside. There's Mr. Nosey with a letter. The letter's addressed to Mr. Brown at 15 High Street, Tiddletown. Mr. Nosey was the sort of a person who, if he was sitting reading his paper on a train, would much rather read the paper of the person sitting next to him. Look, that's Mr. Nosey's nose looking at the paper of the person sitting next to him. Naturally, as you might well imagine, Mr. Nosey was not very popular. People did not like the way in which Mr. Nosey would peek and pry into their affairs. They did not like it at all, but did that stop Mr. Nosey peeking and prying? It did not. There he is looking out of the window, prying on other people. Mr. Nosey lived in a funny tall thin house in a place called Tiddletown. The people of Tiddletown decided that Mr. Nosey was becoming much too nosy, so they held a meeting to discuss what to do about him. Well, Oscar, I've run out of space on this recording, so we'll continue with the story of Mr. Nosey next time. Hope you like it. Lots of love from me and Granny and Auntie Anna and from Moosey. Moosey's waving bye-bye, bye-bye, and have a lovely day, and hope to hear all about what you're doing soon. Lots of love, Oscar. Bye.